Hey everybody, it's Ron and Ellie back for another edition of Ask Ron. First up this week is Tony Anzer in Indiana.
Hey, Tony.
He says, I send yellow letters to people in 3 different counties of Illinois and 1 county in Indiana, and my return address is in Indiana. With the goal of getting a better response rate, do you think it's worth getting a different return address more local to those areas?
Well, it wouldn't hurt, Tony. I don't know if it'll make any difference or not. In fact, I've seen these things sent out with no return address on them, and they seem to work. Can't honestly tell you for sure whether it'll lower your response or not, but the only way you're going to find out, sir, is to test. I know that's an ugly word, but test, test, test. So here's what you do. You get an address in Indiana, and you mail half the letters with a local return address and half of them with your regular return address, and put a different phone number in each of those 2, then you'll instantly be able to measure which one worked the best, and from that point on you'll know. Until you actually do that, it doesn't make any difference what I say or anybody else says, you won't know the answer. Test, test, test.
Okay, next up is Marianne Nunes from California.
Marianne.
She says, with the new terms, of course, do you ask the seller to sign an authorization to release information sheet when we whether we do a sandwich lease?
Yes, it doesn't make any difference. Regardless of what kind of contract you get signed, you should always get the authorization, even if you never use it. And by the way, it was just pointed out to me that the authorization that was on the Go Club is wrong. You will need the loan number on the authorization, and you will need the address of the property, and I noticed neither one of those are on it, so fix yours. We are posting another one if it hasn't already been, but just add those 2 items on there and you can use the one that's on your site.
Alright, next up is Don Strickland in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Don.
Don says, I have a piece of land that I'm selling to a buyer that lives next to the property. It's an all-cash deal with no banks, and I'm just waiting on the title to be good to go. I'm sending the agreement via email to the buyer and wondering if I actually need to collect a binder or just get it signed and send to the attorney to close.
Don, you know better than that. If you don't collect a binder from the buyer, you've got nothing. You're sending him a contract, and you're asking your attorney to start spending money to prepare the documents, and you don't even have a commitment from your buyer. I wouldn't even bother with a contract to the attorney until I get a binder, and that binder should be substantial. I don't know what your sales price was, but gosh, even if I'm putting a lease option tenant buyer in a $100,000 house here, I get them to give me $2,500 binder the day we have the meeting. So yes, the answer is always get a binder. Till you have a binder, you have nothing. And do you understand that if you get his contract signed by both parties and you don't get a binder and he doesn't close, he's still got your property under contract and kind of got you. So always get a binder.
Okay, next up is Patrick Clapp in New Hampshire.
Hey, Pat. Haven't seen you in a while.
He's got a deal for you. Says the after repair value is $210,000.
Yep.
The mortgage amount is $177,000.
Yep.
PITI is $1,100. The house needs no work. So he says, I will sell this property on a lease to own, and I could easily get $1,600 a month and a $229,000 price.
Right.
The seller is okay with me either taking the mortgage subject to or lease optioning it from her.
Right.
The problem I'm having is that the seller previously did a loan modification and she's behind on her payments, but she's working with the lender and they're not foreclosing. My concern is if this lender would try to foreclose after I lease option it to someone else. How do you think I should move forward?
Actually, we did one like this not too very long ago, Pat. Here's step 1. I'd go ahead and get a deed signed by the seller so you'll have that. So you'll know that when this process is over, you will own the house. I just would not record it. Because if you do record that deed and that lender finds out about it, they will not do that mortgage modification for your seller. Number 2, your seller needs to go through with the mortgage modification before you put a lease option tenant buyer in it. And that might get speeded up if in fact there's several payments behind. It's likely they're going to ask for a payment or 2 before they will even agree to complete the mortgage modification. And even then, I can tell you what happened with ours. The payments had to be made on time for 3 months before they'd sign off on the mortgage modification. So, knowing all of that, it very well may be that you have to wait that out, or in fact, in our case, we had someone move in there, and truthfully, we just told a little fib, because if the bank sent somebody by, we told them to tell the bank they were a relative living in the house. If in fact the bank knows that your seller is renting out that house, they still may not go through with the mortgage modification. The safest thing to do is to make the mortgage modification finished, be done with, and have the agreement in writing, and then see what you got to deal with before you put anybody in the house. And but, you know, again, if you got the deed, I assume you're buying it for what she owes on it. You got nothing to lose by getting the deed. Worst case is the bank will call it due, but you should not put anybody in there until you know for sure that it's a done deal, because you are at risk of the bank calling the loan due if you do.
Okay, next up is Patricia McLean in Georgia.
Hey Patricia.
She's got another deal for you. Says, I have an elderly owner with a free and clear house appraised at $125,000. That's the least he'll take because he wants $40,000 down now before the year is out. And the balance he's willing to spread out over the next year. He doesn't want the money now because it'll be put into a higher tax bracket, but he's very adamant about the $40,000 he needs now. Do you think there's a deal here somewhere, Ron?
Well, let me see. The guy wants retail price for the property. He wants $40,000 of it in cash now, and you're asking me if there's a deal there. What do you think? First of all, we do not pay retail price for properties unless we get terms with little or nothing down, and usually nothing down. That is not the case with you. If I get terms, that will override the price. You're not getting terms and you're paying retail price. The answer is absolutely not. That deal is dead, 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 dead. Kill it and go find a seller who actually is motivated enough to work with you. If you get terms, you got a deal. If you don't get terms, you got no deal. And $40,000 down on a $125,000 house is not terms, in my opinion.
All right, Ron, that's all the questions we have for you this week.
All right, wait a minute before we go. Guys, you need to know that on December the 11th, you're going to start getting an email to put you on a series of lessons that we're extracting from my new terms course that I just recorded last month. We are taking some lessons that I think you should have immediately out of that and dividing it into 7 videos. They're, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes long each. And I'm going to be delivering those to you starting on December the 16th throughout the rest of the year. You could kind of call it a Christmas present. There's nothing being sold on these videos, so be on the lookout for them because they are literally extracted right from my new terms course. That course will launch next month, so I'm going to deliver part of it to you even before you have an opportunity to buy that course. But again, these are not sales videos, these are pure training. There's 7 of them. You'll get an email, just watch for the email and just opt in to get them. That's all you got to do. See you next week.